by the heightened consumption of water, especially during heated periods like now we are in the El Nino period. It also says that it's in the process of building some of the infrastructure that's actually going to capacitate it so that they're able to even feed far-flung areas like in Mpumalanga and Northwest. I am joined now by the COO, Mr. Mehlo, to elaborate a bit together on this. Thank you so much for your time, sir. You know, you are briefing us during a time when there's actually a crisis in some of the suburbs in Joburg, where residents haven't had water for quite some time. What has been done to remedy that particular situation, especially in areas that are elevated?
Well, Finze, I think as we outlined the program that we have with the metros, we meet every morning precisely to look at what can be done, and we also monitor the sort of interventions that we put in place. The areas that are being referred to, of course, we can see in the news. We do discuss them in detail ourselves. Basically, what we then do is to agree on how systems can load shift water to assist in particular areas. You would have known and seen that in the recent past, a lot was said around the South Hills area, and that was a function of a system that was not necessarily coping, and we then had to say what can be done to assist that system. And I think as I speak, that area has sort of been given a lifeline. There is a lot of reprieve in the water supply in the South Hills. Similarly, there are other areas, that every day we take stock of those issues and then we plan for the day. There's a daily planning. And in the evening, we have our own internal sessions. We check what has actually worked, what didn't work, and then in the morning sessions the following day, we then regroup to say how do we then change the strategy. But what I can say is also that the areas that are still without water compared to where we were a few weeks ago, we have seen a significant reduction of those areas. Of course, we are aware and mindful of the fact that there are still issues in certain parts of the areas. Some are localized issues that our counterparts in the metros are dealing with. Some require of us as a bulk to also intervene, but what is critical is that we act jointly and in unison.
And there was mention of about 42% of non-revenue water that actually does not reach the consumers themselves. And you mentioned that you estimate water, you don't do water articulation. What can municipalities that are tasked with this particular responsibility do to reduce this particular non-revenue water from being wasted?
Yes, of course. I think the issue of non-revenue water is one that we all agree that is actually a problem that confronts the country. And the number of municipalities actually have outlined their programs, because in the main, when you talk about non-revenue water, there is an aspect of physical losses to it, which simply speaks to plugging the leaks. And that is not necessarily as simple as I make it sound, because in certain instances you have to replace the infrastructure, in certain instances you have to refurbish and repair the infrastructure. And all of that requires certain funding mechanisms, and we know, we are well aware of the plans that most of our municipalities have in place, and you will find that here and there are issues of funding. But there are plans, especially in the metros, because they do have capacity, they do have their own engineers and their own planners. Often than not, it becomes an issue of saying, how do we begin then to fund, these initiatives? From a departmental point of view, you will also be aware that there are grants that that are allocated to these municipalities, and there is an exercise that is collaborated at the level of the minister to ensure that all these initiatives are actually integrated to make sure that we begin to combat, this issue of non-revenue water.
Yes. And can you talk to the infrastructure that you said you are currently building to ensure that you increase the capacity of water volumes that you'll be serving to Gauteng and surrounding provinces?
Yes, of course. As Rainwater, we've got a planning document which we call an IDP, Infrastructure Development Plan. It's a 20-year plan. We take a 20-year view on infrastructure, augmentation, infrastructure refurbishment, and that plan really informs, what infrastructure needs to be augmented, renewed, refurbished, or repaired. And as you would have seen, as recent as this year, August, we launched the additional 150 megaliters per day from our Bosch System 5. This year, early on, again, we launched a reservoir in Vlakfontein, the 210 megaliter reservoir. And all of this critical infrastructure is part of this plan that I talk about. And we are going to continue adding, especially in the storage side as well as the production side. The System 5A is going to give us 600 million liters of water per day. We've launched the first 150. We are anticipating to launch the remaining 450 in the next financial year. And we have already started with the concept, planning and design of the other system called System 5B, which will add another 600. So in total, System 5 will be 1,200 megaliters per day. We've got a number of reservoirs, new reservoirs that we are also building, some of which are in the tender phase. So in the coming 5 years, as we have already outlined our program, that we want to spend close to 35 billion on infrastructure renewal, we will be turning our area of operation into a construction site just to make sure that we repair, maintain the current infrastructure, renew it, but also augment and add in anticipation of future demands.
And just as a parting shot, what would you say to consumers who are concerned that what they are seeing now in terms of the severe water shortages could be something that will actually eventually result in like what load shedding ended up being in our country? How can you assure them that the situation is under control and it will not deteriorate beyond where it is?
Well, from a water security point of view, I think the department is on record outlining plans at a high level to make sure that more water is actually supplied into the Vaal River system. You would have heard the minister speak of the Lesotho Phase 2, which is currently under construction. Plans are to commission that phase of the project as early as 2028. And really from that, we do not necessarily anticipate that we are headed into that kind of a situation where we're not going to have water in the country. And from planning point of view, the infrastructure, the augmentation, purification and distribution of water, as you have already heard, we are already ahead in anticipation of the Lesotho Phase 2 coming. So really and truly, all systems go. We are not panicking. We are not even talking about issues of water security from where I'm standing.
Thank you very much. Well, as you heard, that's the COO of Rainwater actually saying that in as much as there could be challenges in the province and in other places regarding water shortages, he's saying that work is actually underway to ensure that they avert a worst case scenario. And with that, it's back to studio.